Welcome to In Context. This is Liberty News. My name is Ken McDermott Rowe.
And I'm Gus Cantavero. And today we're going to be speaking with activist and director Michael Murphy, director of the film What in the World Are They Spraying? And we've spoken to Michael Murphy before on our radio program In Context, where you can find archive broadcasts at incontextreport.com. And we have Michael Murphy on the phone with us right now, and he is in the middle of a Hawaiian rainforest where he's working on his new film, Why in the World Are They Spraying? Now, I know personally I've spoken to a lot of people about the material contained in What in the World Are They Spraying? And the questions that almost everybody has is, yeah, but why would they do this? Okay, fine. Maybe there is weather modification programs going on. But why would they do this? Because we all live on the same planet. So, Michael, I'm going to ask you, why in the world are they spraying?
Why in the world are they spraying? Well, there are many different agendas associated with geoengineering programs, all of which consolidate an enormous amount of political and monetary power into the hands of the few. But based on our observations and talking to meteorologists and other professionals, we just interviewed Dr. Nick Begich about HAARP. It appears that the number one agenda is weather control and putting aerosols into our sky in the way that geoengineers are not only proposing, but they're also doing, as we've illustrated in What in the World Are They Spraying, with very high levels of aluminum, barium, and strontium, all of which match geoengineers' plans and proposals and a number of geoengineering patents. Putting aerosol aluminum into our skies gives geoengineers the ability to actually heat up those particulates in our sky. And a heated atmosphere actually raises, and by doing that, it creates a vacuum in a low-pressure system, and it enables these criminals or these corporations to steer storms. But other aerosols, which are also being found in many rain tests, according to the scientists and meteorologists that I've spoken to, gives the ability of these corporations to change the way that clouds condense and change the way that they nucleate. So in doing so, they can actually build storms that, are coming to fruition several deviations above what would be typically normal. And they can also diminish storms. So what they're doing is corporatizing natural systems, including our weather. And in doing so, again, it gives these people the ability to control every supply in every political system. And that's what we're seeing. Unfortunately, it's at the expense of every, and when I mean every living thing on the planet. The collapse in terms of human health and ecosystems is happening at a very alarming rate.
Well, that's a great breakdown. I was watching yesterday a clip of Rosalind Peterson, who heads the Agricultural Defense Coalition, and she was talking about some material that she had come across about the free shipping lanes in the North Pole, northern Alaska and such, where they're able to use that area as shipping lanes and for oil exploration, and that Shell Oil has already gotten permits to commence drilling up there. So it actually behooves them to be able to artificially warm the area, because if that place were to refreeze, they would lose access to all the oil. So is this something that we can see being purposefully obfuscated to be kept below the surface so people don't quite understand the nefarious applications behind it, because it purely is about making money and other such controls?
Well, you're correct. It definitely is. And again, it's about the consolidation of power. Obtaining more oil into the hands of these criminals would allow them to have that power. Scott Stevens said, if you control the weather, you can control the world. And that statement is very true. I've consulted Rosalind many times about this issue, and we're going to interview her when I get back onto the mainland after my trip, and she will be an important part of the film. But there's no question, on many different levels, corporate and political agendas are achieved through disasters, specifically weather disasters. And again, weather is a very powerful not only weapon but tool in doing many things, not only militarization, but in terms of controlling our food supply.
Just to be clear, Michael, this is Ken. If a person observes the chemtrails in the sky, are they usually going to be associated then with some unusual weather event, or could the chemtrails be there for some other reason?
Oh, well, that's a great question. And what we've observed, and as well as Scott Stevens, again, he was a 20-year weatherman, he started noticing that about 500 to 1,000 miles ahead of a storm, very, very heavy trailing. And again, if you realize that the number one ingredient is aluminum oxide, and aluminum oxide is not a very effective conductor for like wire around your home. Copper is, but copper is much heavier. Aluminum is very effective because of its lightweight and other properties in our sky. And in the past 30 years, our atmosphere is 30 times more conductive. Why is that? It's because they have this conductor in the sky. And again, through different technologies and through the HARP technology, which is an ionic heater, they have the ability to warm parts of our sky. And again, that creates that low pressure, gives them the ability not only to change jet streams, but also to design storms that can have an impact and also create drought in certain areas. And of course, we see in drought conditions, Monsanto comes in after the farmer is devastated with their drought-resistant Terminator seeds. So it's literally many different things, but what they're doing is taking over the food supply, and Monsanto has a goal and an agenda, and that is to control everything and own everything that grows. Weather control enables them to do that. Our soils are also being contaminated, as we addressed in the first film, What in the World Are They Spraying? Monsanto has a stress-resistant seed that will grow not only in droughts, in floods, but also in soils that are toxified. So what we're seeing, especially here on Maui, Maui's a beautiful place, but I've spoken to many organic farmers and many locals here. Everything is beginning to die. Things are starting to brown. The coconut trees are slowly dying around here. People are noticing it, and they're concerned that their freedom, their ability to live off of the land and grow natural organic foods is ending. And the concern for many people, including myself, is, again, this is a corporate agenda to make everybody dependent on the corporations.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And you make a strong point there about Monsanto. And I would say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I definitely am enticed by the points that you're making. I would ask you to clarify, or maybe this is a teaser for some information that's coming out in the film soon, but are you saying that the corporations like Monsanto, who stand to gain commercially by weather modification, are potentially behind or at least taking advantage of the weather modification?
Well, I think they're in the club.
Okay.
The leaders at the very high level are in this club. They call them the elite. I call them many things, but you probably shouldn't say that on the radio today.
Sure.
But they definitely benefit from it. And what we found, Bill Gates, and this is public record, is a funder into geoengineering research. He is pushing it. This is something he is
as well as GMOs.
Well, he's a major investor in Monsanto. So, and we illustrated in our new trailer, Why in the World Are They Spraying? It can be seen on truthmediaproductions.us. Bill Gates, okay, so he's investing in toxifying our soils. He benefits with these new seeds that have the ability to grow. So it's the old Hegelian dialectic, the problem, reaction, solution, where we see these criminals who want to, and I think it goes past money. This is about power and it's about control. It's about what every major religion talks about. We have this corporate governmental conglomerate, I call it the beast, that is genetically modifying natural systems, usurping that authority so that it comes under the authority of corporations, thus man. And geoengineer David Keith made a statement about a year and a half ago. He said geoengineering gives man godlike power. I think that's what he meant.
And if anybody doubts the agenda, I'd suggest they read William Engdahl's book, Seeds of Destruction. You might be familiar with that, where he traces the rise of agribusiness and how all of our food is essentially controlled by a handful of corporations, including Monsanto.
Right. Now, Michael, one person I spoke to recently, I had sort of an online debate going on where we were talking about chemtrails, maybe one of my videos that I had on YouTube or something. And he's a former FAA airline controller, and he's saying, look, I know about plane trails. I know about jet exhaust. Trails have been around forever. What you're talking about, they're just contrails, so I would show him, the documentation showing, the additives to the fuel, showing the geoengineer conferences where they're talking about this stuff and the weather modification and how it's been used over and over again for decades. And he said, yeah, I know weather modification's been around for decades. And I'm saying, well, that's what this is. Why are you acting like you don't believe? He's saying, no, but that's not the same thing. Chemtrails and weather modification are not the same thing. And I had to show him piece of evidence after evidence, just documentation after documentation. This is the same thing. What's your what could you say to address people who say that chemtrails, the weather, the population control agenda, the eugenics, it's not the same thing as weather modification?
I would have them watch my film, where Scott Stevens, meteorologist, has been studying this. The trails, the aerosols, are absolutely required for these corporations to achieve their weather modification goal. No question about that, period. And there's several studies that indicate belief systems are stronger than fact. So if somebody has a real strong belief system that this is not happening, and it's a hard thing to grasp, especially for people who are new and have been essentially blessed and supported by this corporate system. However, once you look at the facts and people let that guard down and look at the facts, not look at the belief system, but look at the facts on this, we have about a 95% success rate in terms of people supporting the work and coming to realize that this is not only a reality that we're in, but a crisis that needs to be addressed.
Michael, what about the military angle there? Is the military attempting to use weather as a weapon? And could that be part of the chemtrails?
The military has for a very long time. And if you look back at the Vietnam War, there was a program called Project Popeye. And it was actually a cloud seeding operation where they used aerosol trails to seed clouds, and they affected the Ho Chi Minh Trail by flooding it out. And I think with 13 feet of rain in less than 1 hour. That was several years ago. And according to Dr. Nick Beggett, who we interviewed yesterday for the interview, he said that technology doubles now every 7 months. So with the people that we've interviewed, that was a small-scale operation. Military has a document called Owning the Weather by 2025. Weather is force multiplier. I'm hearing feedback, so I'm having a challenge articulating this. But this is a stated goal and agenda by our military. And if you look at the words, owning the weather, not modifying,
right?
Owning,
right?
Complete control, and we believe that they're already there.
Yeah, I believe from my notes that paper was published in 1996, so this has been going on for some time. Can you,
without question.
Michael, can you talk about your work now on this new film? What direction you're going in? Some of the people you've been talking to.
Absolutely. Well, I had mentioned we spoke with Dr. Nick Beggett, who is a HAARP expert, meteorologist Scott Stevens, just an incredible man. He's been studying this for about 8 years, very well, not only of the contamination, but the aspect of how these trails are required for weather control. Mark McCandlish, who is a former Air Force and worked in the defense. He was a defense contractor for a number of years, well aware of this issue. And then we've also interviewed Barbara Peterson from Farm Wars, who's aware of the destruction on farmland and the corporatization that's occurring with this. We released the funding trailer about 10 days ago or 11 days ago. It's had a great response. We have over 40,000 hits on the video. And I believe this. The first film has been seen by over 10 million people, and it's been a very, very powerful tool to bring into to legislators and just create a general movement around the world. As a result, we have ordinances that are being formed around the world, one here in Maui, and that's one of the reasons that I'm here on the island. So we're working tirelessly to get these programs stopped, and I really believe addressing the weather control aspect is not only the next crucial step in terms of waking up even more people, but also moving closer to holding the governments and corporations behind these programs accountable, because people are becoming aware that there's corruption in our governments and corporations. We're illustrating that and the connection between Monsanto. So I hope every listener will go and see that video. And the first film we funded entirely by donations and pre-orders. We're working on a shoestring budget, but as a result, we were able to reach over 10 million people, and I believe this film will be even more powerful. So please, get involved, pre-order. That will make this film a reality. It will give you a tool to bring into legislators and even bring out in the street, like, why in the world are they spraying? And this film's also going to be available for free, so we'll be serving humanity. You can go to whyangels.info for more information, whyangels.info, and you can also see the trailer. Please pass it along. We need your support. Can't do it without you. We'll do the work, and we'll get a DVD out to you pre-order.
It's really important that the listeners and the viewers out there watching on YouTube get out there and support your efforts, because, as you said, you make the film available for free. You allow duplication. You make your research available, and you do this, like you said, on a shoestring budget, supported by the activist community. And that's because there isn't going to be a big budget corporate grant for something like what Michael Murphy is doing and trying to achieve here with independent research, because you're basically going after the corporations and the governments who stand to gain by seizing control of the natural forces. So, if someone tries to go after Monsanto, they end up, with lawsuits slapped on them to try to shut them up. So what you're doing, Michael Murphy, is very brave. I salute you. I support you as much as I can, as well as Ken does as well.
Thank you very much for joining us, Michael.
We really appreciate your work, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Oh, guys, thank you so much, and God bless you for addressing this, and thank you.
All right, and we'll be sure to have you back on when the film is done.
Oh, I'd love to.
All right, looking forward to it.
Bye-bye, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So that's going to do it for this edition. You've been listening to the interview with Michael Murphy, director of previous film What in the World Are They Spraying?, working on his new film Why in the World Are They Spraying?, a much anticipated sequel. And that's going to do it for this episode of the In Context Liberty News. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit our blog at incontextreport.com.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.